Tonight we're going to learn a little bit about effective behavior strategies, how to figure out the why of what behaviors are, and just learn a little bit about behavior basics. So I am Kelsey Thrasher. I'm a mom of 3. I'm also a board certified behavior analyst, and I work for Carroll County Public Schools as a behavior consultant in Success, formerly known as the Autism Program, for Shiloh Middle School and Winters Mill High School. So that's really a very fun job for me. I just work with behaviors and trying to decrease those behaviors, the maladaptive behaviors, and increase the good behaviors. And it's really super rewarding. I also have 2 kiddos with severe ADHD and then another one with anxiety. So I also live with a lot of different behaviors going on in my home. So it is definitely, when I'm talking about things, it's not easy, because being a mom and working with your kids, or a grandparent or aunt, uncle, whomever, a family member working with the kids versus school working with the kids is so different, right? It's like so easy to say, stay calm and don't lose it, you know. So I totally feel you with frustrations and things. And so just try very hard to listen and use the strategies. They do work. The books that we gave out tonight is called APA Visualize. This book is really cool. I really suggest you leaf through and just look at the pictures. It gives a really cool guide of what behaviors are and how to respond to them, and then what that looks like after you are responding in the appropriate way, or when you're responding in a inappropriate way. It's very cool. It's very literally drawn out for you. I really love that it's very visual. Tonight we'll be discussing behavior strategies that can be used in your home. How? By learning about the why of behaviors and identifying the challenging routines, activities, or behaviors. We really want our kids to be happy, right? We want them to be successful. It's heartbreaking when we can't get our kids to do what we would like them to do, what we expect them to do. So these strategies can be helpful. So behavior basics. What is behavior? Behavior is literally everything and anything a person does. It can be a good behavior, it could be a bad behavior, it could be neither, but it has to be something that we do. It can't just be sitting up on a log. In school, we learned about the dead man test, and if a dead man can do it, it's not a behavior, right? So that's kind of what you think. So if you're thinking, oh my gosh, everything we do is a behavior, breathing is a behavior, drinking your drink is a behavior. So when I say behaviors, it's not always like this tantrum behavior, you know what I mean? It's anything that we do. Why is it important? So we want to decrease a behavior, we have to increase another behavior. We can't just decrease and then let it go. We have to have something replacing that. Behavior is easy as ABC. So I like to think of this little piece as being a detective. I analyze behavior every single day, all the time. And the mode I use is antecedent, behavior, consequence. So those are the 3 things I'm looking at. So the antecedent would be what happened right before the behavior occurred. In my home, it's usually I turn the TV off. And then the behavior is what your child did. So my kids would probably scream and cry or yell at me, turn it back on, I'm not done, right? Have a huge tantrum. Electronics in my house is like really high value, and turning it off unexpectedly or in general is like so detrimental. So that would be the behavior piece, and the consequence is usually just pushing them along, trying to get them to do something different, or ignoring them. That's the consequence. Nobody gave them attention when they screamed and cried. Or it could be you turn the TV back on. That would be the consequence. The consequence isn't always a bad thing in this realm when we're looking at the ABCs of behavior. So what we're really here for is learning what the function is. The function is the why a behavior is happening. Why is it important to find the function? Because we need to know how to react to it. Have you ever seen or been that parent in the store and your kid is screaming for a lollipop? or a candy in the aisle or a toy, and they're screaming and crying and screaming and crying and screaming and crying, and you give them what they want to make them stop crying, right? So that's great that they stop crying. However, you're teaching them, oh, I scream and cry now. They're going to give me what I want. So it's a learned behavior. So it's really important to know the function of why are they screaming and crying to figure out how to respond. And so to teach them in the future, how are they going to ask for that toy or that lollipop? Are they going to scream and cry? Are they going to ask for it nicely? And then later it's learning about, denied access, like, oh, sorry, not right now, or you can earn that, but learning how to react to a behavior is super duper important. So learning that function. So we also want to increase or decrease the behavior. So we want to increase those good things. In the school setting, would be increase sitting at a table. So those little pre-K students or kindergartners, sitting at a table is really hard. That's a behavior. Sitting and learning at a table is a behavior. And so we want to increase that duration of that. We might want to decrease throwing things and ripping materials, right? So we want to know what the function is so we know how to manipulate it to increase or decrease those behaviors. And then we also want to avoid making problem behaviors worse. Like I just talked about with in the store, the kid asking and screaming and crying for candy, they've learned now when I scream and cry, I get what I want, right? So we also want to include, think about replacement behaviors. So going back to screaming and crying for candy, we can work with our kids like, okay, what do I want them to be doing instead of screaming and crying? I want them just to ask. I just want them to ask nicely. So we have to think about that replacement behavior of what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing. Does that make sense? So there are 4 functions of behavior. And I think of it as feet. S is sensory, E is escape, A is attention, and T is tangible. This is a really cool chart. I'm going to go through each one individually, so I'm just going to move on from that chart. But it is a nice chart to look at and think about. So the first section is function is sensory. Sensory can be a lot of different things. It could be a kiddo just spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning because it feels really good. They like to spin. Could be that they're flapping their hands, that they're clapping, that they're jumping up and down. It's a feel-good movement. Sensory is also part of automatic. So I have a kiddo who loves to tap and listen to things, and he just likes it. We play music because we just like it. It's a sensory thing, right? It feels good. It makes us happy. It makes us calm. Those things can be would be underneath the function of sensory. So I listen to music because it makes me calm, and I like the way it makes me feel. Does that make sense? So any sensory behaviors can occur anytime, anywhere, any place. With people around, without people around, in presentation of a demand or not. So sensory can be a tricky one. I know, for example, I had my kiddo yesterday. She was playing and she snapped at me, and yelled at me, and I was like, "Whoa, what was that for?" And it really was a sensory response because her throat was hurting. I know that kind of sounds a little weird, but like we have to think about sensory, like how our bodies are feeling too. So looking at like the spectrum of being ill or sick. I know sometimes it's hard to tell if your kid is sick. My kid had pneumonia for a week and I didn't even realize it. I heard her coughing, but I didn't realize she was actually really sick because she bebopped around normally. But her snapping at me, that reaction was actually a sensory response because her throat was actually hurting. So that's kind of a weird thing. Usually it's something visual that you can see that, you know, they're spinning or they're clapping, or maybe they're doing vocalizations because they like the way it feels. They're watching lights, they're watching TV. That's a sensory experience. And then how do we respond to different sensory things? So there can be sensory functions that are unpleasant that we don't want them to be doing anymore, right? There could be a kiddo who is chewing on their hair, someone that chews on her hair because she likes the way it feels. She loves the way it feels. She doesn't know why. She also eats crayons. She doesn't know why. She just likes that texture, the different textures in her mouth. And so I responded by introducing things that are safe for her to put in her mouth, just like we do with our infants, right? We give them safe things to explore their mouth, the soft toys, the crinkle books, the rubber toys, the plastic toys. And I had to introduce different chewies to her and different textures that are actually safe for her to put in her mouth, because she was literally biting her hair off. She had like short piece here from chewing on her hair. So my response was giving her something more appropriate to chew on. Or on the sheet bump right here, it says, if a child puts non-edible things in their mouth, provide them with access to a chew tube or gum, something that is appropriate to chew on and safe to chew on. The next function of behavior is escape. This can look like a lot of different things. The why of escape is these behaviors remove an undesired situation or person. So maybe they're running out of a room. Maybe like they're physically leaving. Maybe they're pushing food away because they don't want to eat it. There's a lot of different ways that they could show that they're escaping something or avoiding something. I know with me personally, I avoid my work at times by scrolling on my phone. That's an avoiding behavior. I have a kiddo who she pushes her food away. I don't like it before she even tries it, but she pushes it away, or she'll try and get out of her chair. And that is an escape. Escape behaviors occur at the time in which something is viewed as being too hard, too boring, or too loud. I don't know all the ages of the kiddos you have, but I know once homework starts, that can be so challenging at home. It could be a very simple task, but my son will view it as something very extremely hard, like I'm trying to have him do physics problems or something. But really, it's just him copying the word. But he views it as something very hard. He'll scream and cry and try to leave the table during homework time. How to respond. Teach the child to request a break when needed, divide tasks into smaller parts, or give within activity choices. So those are really great suggestions for a lot of different types of escape behavior. If they're in a very loud environment, sometimes the lights can be overwhelming, sometimes the people can be overwhelming, the sound, and the kiddo wants to run out of the store because it's just too much. Teaching them how to request to leave, or maybe use headphones. Maybe they would like to wear a hoodie or sunglasses. Sometimes that helps as well. When you're doing chores at home, cleaning my kids' rooms is the hardest thing for me to get them to do. So I always say, okay, pick up all your dirty clothes and put them in the hamper, and I'll be right back, or come get me when you're done. So like breaking it up in chunks. Stack up all your books and put them on the bookshelf. And do all this at once. So we're breaking them in chunks instead of looking at the whole mess, because let me tell you, the room is a mess. Like, it is so bad. And they share rooms, so it's like even worse. But having them like pick up all your baby dolls, put them in the bin, and then come find me, or I'll sit there in there with them and just break it up in smaller chunks. That helps with making it feel more manageable. And honestly, I use the same thing when I'm working on tasks. Okay, I'm just gonna do the dishes for now, and then I'll move on to the laundry. Or like, okay, after I'll fold this basket, I don't have to do all the baskets of laundry today, you know. But like making things feel a little bit more manageable can help you from you and your kiddos engage in those escape behaviors. This, for the example in here, says if a child blocks out their chair during work session, provide them with access to a break card. That's more of a school setting. It could also be a homework setting as well. But they could be flopping out of a chair for during dinner or breakfast, or at the restaurant, and just like giving them access to a way out, but to ask for it appropriately rather than acting out. The next function is attention, and that is probably my favorite function of behavior. There's so many examples of attention-seeking behaviors. It makes me laugh, especially in the home environment. So these behaviors provide a reaction from others. They're often described as acting out behaviors. So it can be acting out, it could be tantruming, and then you walk out of the room and they stop tantruming and walk and follow you, or they're tantruming, following you around, crying. That's usually an attention-seeking behavior. My kids do the mom, 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 and I just ignore them. And then I finally am like, yes, no, I love you. And I'm like, I love you too. But like they just need some sort of attention. I've had my little girl, she used to get a lot of attention seeking by picking on her siblings. And it was not always a nice way. She was a hitter or pincher, and she just thought it was so fun to get them really angry and then run around the house and have them chase her. Like, she just loved that. And how do I respond to that? I have been teaching her, it's a work in progress, but we've been working on having her ask for attention appropriately, and then working with the older siblings with like giving her the appropriate attention instead of ignoring her, because that's what was happening. The older siblings were ignoring the younger sibling, and she just wanted to play with them. And so my oldest is really good with her, and we'll be like, Ray, it looks like you need attention. Do you want to go play baby dolls? And she's like, yeah. Like, okay. So, working through that with all the siblings is really helpful. Or you as well, like, your kiddo is maybe having a tantrum, or you can tell, like, hey, I see you need more attention. I've been working all day, or I've been cleaning all day, and I haven't really sat down and played with you. Validating that it looks like you need attention. You can say, can we read a book together? Or, giving them those words or those actions to show you what they want. So attention-seeking behaviors occur at times when the child desires a social interaction with another person. And that, again, could be a positive interaction or a negative interaction. It could be either or. For example, if a child screams to gain attention, provide them with access to praise for having a quiet voice. So, like, oh, I love it when you tap my arm. Actually, I just saw that a moment ago with your daughter. We were talking, and she was trying to get your attention, and you're like, hold on, 1 second, you can say, and you gave her the words to say, excuse me, can I talk to you? And then you said, yes, 1 moment, I'm speaking. And so you gave her the words instead of her just like, mom, 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 right? Which was such a cool example, and it was a very appropriate response. It was really great. But she was attention seeking. She wanted to talk to you. So that was wonderful. Tangible is the last function. Tangible is something that they can obtain, that they can hold, they can have. These behaviors provide an access to highly preferred items or activities. I hear a lot through my different families that the iPad is one of the biggest tangible items that the kids are having meltdowns over. that they want it at dinner, they want it all the time, they're always wanting the iPad. And when they end it at night, it's a huge meltdown. Actually, when my kiddo, last year, we started no screens during the weekday, which is like really challenging, but it works because they would always have a meltdown when they didn't have a tablet or they didn't have the TV. I'm not saying you have to go to that extreme, but for my family, we did need to do that. So I don't watch TV during the week. My husband doesn't until the kids go to sleep. And it's been very helpful to have those tantrums kind of are gone. And now they actually play with toys. They go outside more. So there was a lot of good things that went with that. But anyways, so tangible function happens when they're seeking behaviors. They occur at the same time when the child desires a specific item or activity. So that might be that they are having a meltdown because they want the lollipop at the grocery store. That could be that they want a toy that even if they drop, like if they're in the stroller, they drop the toy and they're crying and screaming because they dropped the toy and they're reaching down. That's a behavior and that's a tangible behavior. How do we respond to that? We're going to teach the child to ask for and wait for the item, and granting, and then giving them opportunities to access that item appropriately. So if a child begs to use the iPad, allow them access the following completion of a task or chore. So this is pretty much saying like have them do something to earn it. So you want the iPad? Okay, let's clean up our blocks. So let's clean up our puzzles, and then you can have the iPad. So you're kind of gaining that compliance with them and letting them know that like you can't have a meltdown to have something. You have to either earn it or ask appropriately. This is one of my favorite little charts. Reinforcement versus bribery. So I use a lot of reinforcement in my home. We do star charts, sticker charts. We got 1 million stampers for Valentine's Day, so we're using stamps right now, the little one. So we use a lot of reinforcement. For my family, reinforcement looks like they earn 100 stamps and then they get $2 to go to the dollar store. And it takes a while to earn them. But what I have is their expectations are to be kind to each other, use nice words, clean up after themselves, which means like taking the dishes to the dishwasher or to the sink after they're eating, not eating in the living room. That is a big thing that they just, I don't know why they want to do that all the time, but they eat in the living room, throwing away their trash, letting the dog out, voluntarily feeding the dog or the cat, just like things that we want them to be doing, right? So I catch them when they're good. It's not every single time they do it, but I'll say, I'll see my daughter cleaning up her babies and putting them in the cradle, and I'm like, oh, Rhea, great job. I love how you cleaned up. Go give yourself a stamp. And then she'll go and give herself a stamp, and she'll be so excited. Morning routines are so challenging in my house, and that's like when I really hit that really hard is the reinforcement chart, because we have meltdowns every single morning. One of the 3 is melting down, and I don't know why it's so hard, because on the weekend they're fine. But mornings are really hard, so really praising them, reinforcing them for doing the right thing, the proper thing is great, because then the sibling will look over and be like, oh, I want a stamp too, and then they'll do what we want them to do. So going back, I went on a little tangent, I'm sorry. But going back to reinforcement versus bribery, they are very similar. However, reinforcement are rewards that are earned and incentive for a job done well. So they're earning something. And then bribery is they're given in response to a challenging behavior. Like, oh, you're screaming and crying, I'm going to give you your iPad. You're screaming and crying, I'm going to give you a lollipop. So it quiets them down quickly. Or if you just put your pants on, you can have a cookie for breakfast, right? that would be a bribe. Does that make sense? They're not, you're kind of like fronting, there we go, changes in behavior in the moment, but not over time. So you're just, it's only in the moment. It's that one time you're like, oh, like you're bribing them, but you're just get dressed. Just get dressed and you can have a cookie for breakfast. It's only going to happen that one day, right? The next morning, they're not going to get dressed and be like, where's my cookie, right? And then for reinforcement, it creates lasting change. So we're going to see those behaviors. So having the STAR chart has been helping, having the stamps. They've learned that, oh, when I voluntarily do these things, I get rewarded. And $2, I feel like over a week, it's not too bad. Sometimes it's not even monetary. It's just like they get to pick the movie for Friday night movie night. It could be that they get to pick the music in the car for that week, the whole week. They can pick the music in the car. It could be that they, when they get their 100 stars or checks or whatever, maybe they do get a treat, or they get like special time with mommy or daddy. Like I might take them to the bakery, or we might go to the playground, just me and her, right? It doesn't have to be something monetary. You could do like something just special, an activity with them, something that they like too. Reinforcement is also planned ahead, and it's delivered with praise, because what we want to do is eventually fade the STAR charts, fade the stamps, fade the stickers, and just have them be like, great job, and then feel that proudness and that happiness from us just praising. So fading those things out. So you're gonna say, oh my gosh, I love how you cleaned that up all by yourself. Go give yourself a star. And eventually I can just be like, wow, you did a really great job, nice job. And then they're just happy with that praise, right? And then bribery is reactive and delivered in frustration. I feel like we all have done that in our lives, that we react to a behavior because we're frustrated and we just want the behavior to stop. So we're gonna bribe, we're gonna be like, and sometimes that is the last resort. Sometimes you just have to get out of the store with the crying kiddo, and you're like, fine, I will buy that. I'm just trying to check my items out. I'm fine, you can have the candy. I don't care, just stop crying, right? It happens. We all do it, it's okay. But trying to plan ahead, like when you're in the car, going to the store, okay, remember when you have your hands to yourself, you stay with mommy, you stay with daddy, you stay with me, or you stay in the cart, and use a quiet voice, then maybe you can get a treat at the end, or maybe we can have a park on the way home. So having that planned ahead is a reinforcement side of it. Another reinforcement would be adults are in control. They decide when and if the reward has been earned. So you want to set those expectations for the kiddos. Like I was saying in the cards, like when you have your hands to yourself, when you have a quiet voice, when you stay with me, then you can earn X, Y, Z. Instead of being like, well, you threw a toy, so you don't get to earn that. Well, actually, that wasn't part of the thing. You did have your hands to yourself, you just dropped it on the ground instead of holding it or putting it in the cart, right? So making sure you have those clear expectations is really important when you're reinforcing, and making sure that the child understands what those mean, like having your hands to yourself, quiet voice, staying with me, and making it really concise, just really easy, simple language and concise. And then on the bribery side, the child is in control. Negotiation is made in exchange for compliance. If you just get dressed, I'll give you a cookie, right? The kid is kind of in control of that situation. This is a really fun little chart. It says 12 ways to avoid or diffuse a power struggle. There's a lot of different strategies on here. They're really helpful in the everyday life, school life, home life, It's just a really nice little chart. I'm going to start up at the top left. Scale expectations, reduce the workload slightly to make it appear easier or more attainable. So we talked about that earlier with chunking when they're trying to escape a task, right? So like making it a smaller, attainable task rather than a huge task like, all right, go clean your room. Well, that's so huge. It's impossible, right? So making it a smaller task. Okay, go pick up all your socks that are on the floor. And that is so much more attainable than, and it'll probably avoid a power struggle with you going back and forth and arguing. Positive reinforcement, reward the behavior so that you want to see happening more often. We just talked a lot about reinforcement. So setting up things ahead of time, thinking about how you want to reinforce them, thinking about what things are high value for your kiddos. So is it just spending time with you alone? Is that more reinforced? Is that really highly reinforcing? Do they really like to go to the park and play with other kids? Thinking about those positive reinforcement opportunities. Accept approximations. So recognize any attempt to engage the desired behavior. So if you have a little one and you're just trying to teach them to clean up their mess, if they're trying to put stuff in a bucket and they missed the bucket, praise them. Oh, love how you're trying to help clean up. This is so amazing. They almost got it, but not quite. Or they're trying to fold laundry. My youngest is trying to fold laundry now with me. And I always have to refold it all, but she's trying, so I'm praising that because I want her to continue folding laundry with me. A lot of times she just kind of rolls it up, but I'm like, wow, and she's like this, and I'm like, that is great, I love it so much, and we just put it in the pile, and sometimes I refold it, and sometimes I don't. It just kind of depends, but that's an approximation. She's trying to do the task. It's not 100%. But I'm going to praise that because I want her to learn that this is the way you do it. This is great. Like we want to see this more often. Visual supports. So display the information in a concrete format using pictures or words. Visuals are helpful for everyone. That book is a visual. Your PowerPoint is a visual, right? Visuals are great for everybody. You don't have to go around and label everything all over the house, the refrigerator at the door with all these visuals. That I've seen in some homes, which sometimes that's wonderful and it is helpful for the kids. But a visual is also their star chart, so they can see how many stars they need until they can earn the $2 to go to the dollar store or to pick the movie for movie night. Visuals can be a timer. Timer I'm going to talk about in a couple slides, but timers are great. I'll talk about that in a minute. So visuals can be really helpful to diffuse a power struggle as well. Remaining neutral. I talked about that in the very beginning, about trying to keep your cool. Our kids really feel how we're feeling, right? And they do match that intensity, that behavior. So if we can stay calm and take deep breaths and show them how to stay calm in a frustrating time, they're going to start being calm in their frustrating moments. I know that I have tried really hard with my kids to not get overly upset over things that are out of my control. Sometimes it's hard to not get upset, right? But I've been doing a lot of breathing, and now I'm trying to model for them what they should be doing when they're upset about things. I have a perfectionist in my house, and he does not like it when things are not perfect. My little guy, not my husband, he's not perfect. But he's been learning how to take deep breaths and calm himself down when he's starting to get frustrated because I'm doing it because I'm trying not to lose my cool. So that's kind of cool. So remaining neutral, if they're acting out in the home or in public, being able to say, I see that you're upset. We need to get through this door and we'll check out. And when we get in the car, we can talk about it. Or I see that you're upset. What do you need? And having those visuals maybe that you can show, like, what do you need? Can you show me what you want? Can you show me what's wrong? But staying neutral is the best way, because if you start, I know you're frustrated, then they're going to keep building up and getting more upset, right? I feel it sometimes at work when somebody's really upset with the kids, and I'm like, hey, go take a break. Go take a break. And I'm like, with the kids, I'm like, what is wrong? What do you need? Show me. And I get their communication device out, or pictures, or whatever they need to communicate with me. And sometimes it's just words. And I just show them, I'm just taking deep breaths, and I'm down, and they start to calm down. But kids will match your energy. So as long as you can try and stay neutral, calm, they will usually also stay neutral and calm, or try to come back down. Disengage. So pause the discussion and let your child know that you will revisit the topic at a later date. I've done this a lot. They might be really upset about something, and I'm like, okay, I understand you're really upset, but we're not talking about that right now. That is all done. We can talk about that when we get home. Being able to kind of let them know this is over. We're going to talk about this later, and then do not keep saying, I told you we were going to talk about it later. They keep bringing it up. You can just literally put your hand out and just ignore them, and try to get them into a different conversation, or get them into a different activity. That's very helpful. Using first then language is great. Providing access to the reinforcement following a less support activity. That's similar to what we do at home is with my son. It's first homework, and then you can earn outside time, playing outside. And he doesn't care if it's raining or snowing or anything. He just wants to be outside. So using first then language is really helpful. This morning they wanted a sunny D, and I said, first we're gonna have milk, and if you're still thirsty, then you can have a sunny D. Which was I really didn't even want to say that this morning, but I did, because they asked so appropriately. That was another thing, is that they asked so nicely, and they're like, excuse me, Mom, can I have this for breakfast? And I was like, that's like a lunch thing. And they're like, well, I didn't have one yesterday. I was like, okay, first drink your milk, and then you can have Sunny D. You don't always have Sunny D. That was just a special thing I got. And then reframe the request. So put a positive or creative spin on the original command. So maybe it's cleaning up after themselves, and you wanted them to pick up their toys, but they won't do it. It's just like, oh my gosh, let's see, can I shoot it in the basket? And you pick up the toys, and you just start making it more of a game. That's always really helpful too, to make things seem more fun. I always think of Mary Poppins, where she makes cleaning up fun, because they're snapping and singing, and it just makes it more fun to clean up. Offer to help, divide the task, and assign each person a role or a job. Helping them, offer to help. So if they have to clean the living room, which my kids do a lot because they always make a big mess. And for some reason, there's always laundry in there. I don't know why. There's socks, there's pants. I'm like, who's getting undressed in the living room? But it's like, okay, Ray, you pick up all the clothes. Stella, you pick up all of the fidgets or the toys. And Willie, you can pick up all the dog toys. And then they clean them all up, and you kind of divvy it up, and it went faster because they all worked together. They got their own items, and cleaned up. Controlled choices. Allow the child to take part in the decision-making process by offering a limited menu of choices. I feel like a lot of us do this, and we don't even realize it. Like if let's just say you're out and about for the day, and you need to stop for lunch, and you're going to give them something maybe not 100% healthy. You can say, hey, what do you guys want for lunch? Do you want McDonald's or Chick-fil-A? So you're giving them a choice that they can choose from, and then they feel like they're making part of the decision, but you're giving them that first choice. Or do you want to go to the park today or go bowling? right? So you're giving them those controlled choices. And it could be even like non-preferred things. Do you want to clean your room or scrub the toilet? My kids, for some reason, really like to do the toilet, and I love that because I do not want to do that. But yeah, so like giving them those forced choices. And sometimes they're going to do all of them, but they can choose which one they want to do first. Yes. Yeah.
So when it comes to like the controlled choices.
Yes.
Is it all positive things that you should be giving them choices with, or like sometimes I will use, okay, think if I'm trying to get my son to do something he's not listening, I'll say, oh, we can either do this, what I'm asking them to do, or we can go to timeout. And those are like the two choices I give him. I mean, it's not always positive choice. I'm just wondering, is that effective in any way where he has the choice to either listen or we can set timeout?
Yeah, because even in the school setting, we've been working on like this one. One of my students is giving him two good choices. That's kind of what we know. So one choice is what we expect of them, and the other choice is something that is not. It's almost a compromise of what you kind of feel like the student or the child would want. So it's one that you can live with. So maybe not time out, but like we need to either clean up your room, or you can just stay in your room for, well, I guess it would be a timeout really, or you can stay in your room. You can help us with the dishes, or you can go to your room, right? Kind of. It can be effective, and then they might be like, all right, I'll help you. Or you can break it down into chunks. So instead of doing a forced choice in situations, you can say, okay, and kind of, you can compromise as well with that. So like maybe you make it a smaller task rather than the entire task, and just praise them as they go and be like, oh, how about right now we'll do a little bit right now, and let me help you do it, and then we'll do the rest later, maybe. And I've also found that in those types of situations, like for some reason, getting dressed is very hard in my house. And there are times where they're like, I'm not getting dressed. I'm not going to school today. I'm like, hey, bud, we're going to go to school. Come on, let's go in your room. Do you want to pick out your clothes, or do you want me to? Right? And then he's usually like, you. Okay. So I'll pick out his clothes. I'm like, do you want me to help you with your pants, or do you want to do it yourself? And so like I'm breaking down this bigger piece into smaller chunks, but I'm also giving them those two choices. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. But my question to you is, when you give him those choices of you either do this or you have a timeout, which one does he typically choose?
It's something newer that I've been trying with him, because the timeout seems to be one of the only effective ways of getting him to kind of to calm down. He does tend to pick the other option. I don't think he wants to sit in timeout, but I do think that maybe giving him instead of the choice of timeout, if he's trying to do something, you can either do this and mommy can help you, or mommy can just do it for you, and then give him those, because that one he's trying to do instead of giving him the option of timeout. He doesn't normally take timeout.
Yes. Okay, that's what I was
Good choice he does.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's working.
I mean, a lot of times it's done, but I didn't know if like the choices could be, I don't want to make it say negative, because but,
Right.
but if they had to be, obviously I don't want that to be the option every time. We know that there's other choices, but sometimes it does work with them where he's giving the option to, okay, I can either listen to what mom's saying, or I can sit in timeout, and he doesn't like to be in timeout, and he tends to go with the other option.
Yeah.
And then I don't have to look.
Or sometimes you can say, if they're losing their mind because of something, it's like, it looks like you need some space. Why don't we take a breath? I'll set a timer, and then we'll try again in a couple minutes.
Yeah.
And maybe not give them their favorite things during that time, but like taking a break and stepping back for a minute. Because I know there are some times where I like to control things. It's really hard for me to I'm working on it. I want things done right now. Like right now. If I ask you to do it, I want it done. However, with my training, that is not realistic, right? That's not not how I really want my house run. It's more of like, for some reason, I want my kids to listen, but berating them and forcing them to do something is not really the way. So working and chunking things has been really helpful, or giving them this forced choices of, okay, we like making statements like, we need to do this. What part do you want to do? And they're like, nothing. It's like, okay, well, how about if I help you do this? And then you do the next thing, or you can choose what we do next, right? Like, but it doesn't have to always be positive. It could, like, if it's like they're out of control and they need some space, and you use the term timeout, I think that's okay at times. Sometimes they're in such a downward spiral that like anything you say is just going to keep making them upset, right? And if going to the room or sitting on a chair or sitting on a step or whatever the timeout looks like, and they're staying in that area, which is never would stay in the area. I literally had to stand in the doorway and with my back to them and just let them be mad until they calmed down. And they were safe, I promise.
There's a work well with a timer, and I might actually get him his own timer, like a kitchen timer that he can hold, so that, because he always wants to hold my phone,
Okay.
but then they'll start going for other things, and that's not what we're doing right now, you know, when we're taking a break. But he tends to do well with the timer. But he's the same way where he won't sit down sometimes, but what we do is we just restart the timer, and we're not gonna sit down when the timer starts, and we're sit here unfortunately until we're calmed down.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool timers. I don't know if you have like an Alexa device or a Google or those, we set those a lot. I also have a big visual timer on my refrigerator that when you turn and set the time, it shows blue and then the blue goes away when the time's up. That's
Yeah, I
really
think something like that.
And that way my kids can't reach it either to reset it or like shorten the time. But yeah, timers are great. Well, and yeah, but and then compromising. So that's what I was talking about a little bit. Is kind of like meeting in the middle. I want you to clean up your toys, but I'm going to help you. You know, working through that so it doesn't seem like such a big task. And then using behavioral momentum, presenting and rewarding a few easy tasks before introducing a difficult in the end. So, you know, oh God, can you shoot your block in the bucket? Nice job. Just do one more, and then okay, let's put them all in, right? So just doing those little bits at a time, and then asking for the bigger demand. Say what you mean and mean what you say. That is really hard. Following through with what you say is really, really powerful. If your kiddo's screaming for something and you say no, and they're screaming and you say no, and you're screaming and you say no, and then you say fine, they've just learned that I can break mom, I can break her, and I can get what I want for screaming or acting this way. If you say no, and you only say it one time and you walk away, and even if they're following you, screaming, crying, they'll eventually learn, it takes a few times, they'll eventually learn that when I say no, or that's not available, or however you want to say it, they're going to learn she means business, he means business. Instead of no, and then fine, okay, whatever, take whatever you want, I don't care, because they, you know, it just shows them that mean what you say. So another mean what you say what you mean. I shouldn't have said it, but when I did say it, so I had to follow through with it. I said, okay, well, if we had a party to go to, it's always cleaning in my house. I wanted the kids just to pick up a couple toys, put them away. It really wasn't even very much. Just, okay, well, before we leave, we need to pick up the toys and put them away. And they're like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm like, well, okay, then we're not going to the party, which is a party I actually wanted to go to, but they didn't do it in the time frame that needed to be done, so we didn't go to the party. And everyone was so upset. I was upset. I was like, yeah, I'm upset too, because I really wanted to go see, you know, Aunt Amy. So follow through, and then now they'll still talk about, remember when we didn't clean up and mom didn't let us go to the party? I'm like, yeah, see? So now they've learned that, like, when I say something, yeah, I really mean it. Avoid setting unrealistic expectations, and then avoid expectations that you're not able to follow through with. So very unrealistic kind of things. Going back to visuals, they help concrete thinking. Avoid abstract thinking and reasoning. So Instead of be a good girl, be a good boy, giving him those expectations like, okay, I really need you to have a quiet voice and your hands to yourself. I really need you to follow directions. Or what does that mean? You know, like, so instead of having this broad, like, be a good, what does good mean? It could be a lot of things. But being able to like really be concise and narrow that down. You need to eat all your food before you get up. Well, maybe they're really full. Do they really need to eat all of it, right? You need to clean up this room. Well, what does clean up mean? So like, okay, I want all the toys picked up. I want all the clothes in the hamper. So just being more concise with how you're saying things. And then visuals, I have timers on here. I love timers, and I didn't bring it today, but I love them so much. We use a little kitchen timer that has it's a visual. I'm gonna look for a second, and I'm gonna bring up an example of what it looks like. And something like this one. So it'll come back. But it shows when the time's going away. That is very helpful. Any of these tips, even the number ones, but sometimes our kids are little and they don't really understand. These kind of timers are so wonderful because they can literally visually see the time going away. And then it rings, and that's another cue of the time going away. Let me see, there's ones that have magnets. This one's the one that I have in my kitchen. It has a magnet, has a stand. You can just stick it to your refrigerator, and it is so helpful. Or how much time do we need before we leave? I have a lot of questions. How many more minutes until we leave to go to something exciting? How many more minutes till we leave? And so I'll just set the timer, and we can use an Alexa device. But sometimes they stop, like they'll use their voice and stop the timer. But this is nice because you can set it and then have it up high and they can't reach it. Well, at least my kiddos can't reach it. So that's really nice. And then there's little ones too, which are great. So using Alexa, Google devices, they are also helpful. One thing that is really nice too are social stories. So if you're going through a difficult time, sometimes I've had a lot of families saying riding in the car is really hard, and them staying safe and seat belted in because they can undo the seat belts.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Amazon things to put over
the lock.
Because he would not stop.
Is it like a pillbox lock kind of one?
Yeah, literally, I have a little it's like a little plastic case of this thing.
Yeah.
It's literally just like his belt that came with the seatbelt. It straps over his actual straps, and then it buckles, and then he actually likes helping me with this part.
To lock
it so that
you
he
just
cannot undo, and they'll stay on him.
Yeah, so
That's what
yeah, there are a lot of really cool things that you can do with seatbelts and help keep our kids safe. But another thing is just like explaining to them in a different way through a social story and something that you could just write up yourself. And there's a lot of social stories online too of different situations, going to the dentist, going to the doctor's office, keeping yourself safe and keeping your seatbelt on in the car. And why do we need to do that? Being kind to friends, hitting, Hands Are Not for Hitting is a good book that a lot of people have used. That's a social story. But trying to find a story to read to your kiddo multiple times, not just one time, but multiple times to try and like sink in the behaviors that we want to see. That's really helpful. A checkoff chart I use at my house as well. I should have brought it in, I'm sorry I didn't. But it's just a picture of our morning schedule. So I need them to go to the bathroom for one reason. My one kid does not go to the bathroom when they wake up. It is bizarre to me, and I don't know why, but she just doesn't want to go to the bathroom. So the one picture is using the bathroom. It's just a picture of a toilet. Next is a toothbrush for brushing teeth. and then getting dressed and eating breakfast. And they have, we have a dry erase marker that is like kind of tethered to it, and they color in that or check it off, that they've done those steps. And then they get a star on their chart, on their big chart. So it's just a checkoff sheet just to like make sure that they're following directions and helping them get through their task. So I don't have to keep saying, did you brush your teeth? Are you dressed yet? You know, because my kids are pretty independent, but they're so distracted. And then we talked about first then, using a first then, you could use a first then board. You can do, you could literally just hold up things like first we're gonna do socks, and then we're gonna go, or first we're gonna do shoes. First we're gonna do shoes, and then we're gonna go outside. So you're literally just showing them their shoes. Anything can really be a visual. It could just be a picture or word, even words that you wrote down on the sticky notes. Really anything like that. And then earning charts, we talked about a start chart and earning. And that could be a really fast earning system. It could be per day, or it could be per week, could be just until they earn them. It could be a monthly thing too.